The day humans made apex predators their dinner guests. In the far reaches of the galactic frontier, where the stars twinkled like distant promises, the first formal encounter between humanity and the Drakari Empire had been scheduled. The Drakari were a species known and feared for one defining characteristic. They were apex predators. Massive, reptilian beings with talons sharp enough to shear through titanium and teeth designed to crush bones into powder, they were infamous for their insatiable hunger and unparalleled ferocity. Most species avoided them entirely, preferring to let the Drakari roam unchallenged through the galaxy. Humanity, however, had issued an invitation. The Galactic Coalition was bewildered. Why would humans, fragile, soft, relatively young to the interstellar stage, want to host a diplomatic banquet for the Drakari? It was an unspoken rule among the stars: you don't break bread with predators. The Coalition warned the humans of their folly, but as always, humanity simply smiled and said, "We've got this." The banquet hall aboard the ISS Unity was a masterpiece of human ingenuity and cultural pride. It was a vast space, lined with windows that offered breathtaking views of the swirling galactic core. The interior was decorated with rich tapestries and floating holograms that depicted Earth's history, from ancient civilizations to humanity's first steps into the stars. A long, sturdy table dominated the center of the room, set with a feast that would have put Earth's most extravagant celebrations to shame. Commander Elise Marlowe stood at the head of the table, her crisp navy blue uniform immaculate, a calm yet commanding presence radiating from her. Around her, her crew moved like clockwork, ensuring every detail was perfect. She glanced at the spread, an array of Earth's culinary triumphs. Platters of roasted meats, bowls of steaming stews, trays of colorful vegetables, and desserts so intricate they looked like works of art. Every dish had been carefully chosen to showcase humanity's relationship with food, a combination of survival, creativity, and pure indulgence. The Drakari delegation arrived precisely on schedule. The air grew heavier as their hulking forms entered the room, each towering over even the tallest human present. Their leader, Overlord Karvask, was a creature of terrifying beauty. His emerald scales shimmered under the light, his yellow eyes glinting with intelligence and the cold calculation of a predator sizing up its prey. Behind him, his warriors moved silently, their claws clicking against the polished floor. The humans didn't flinch. Elise stepped forward, extending a hand in greeting. "Welcome to the ISS Unity, Overlord Karvask. We're honored to have you as our guests." Karvask stared at her outstretched hand, a strange expression crossing his reptilian features. He took the offered hand gently, his claws brushing against her skin. "Humans are bold," he rumbled, his voice deep enough to vibrate the air. "Few would dare to invite us to a meal, let alone prepare it themselves." Elise smiled, unshaken. "Well, we're not like most species." Karvask's snout twitched, a low growl rumbling from his chest. Whether it was amusement or warning was unclear. "So I've heard." As the banquet began, the tension in the room was palpable. The Drakari eyed the feast with suspicion, their instincts warning them of deception. But as they took their seats, the humans moved with an unsettling calm, serving their guests with a practiced grace that seemed to catch the predators off guard. "This dish," said Lieutenant Raj Patel, placing a plate of steaming ribs before Karvask, "is something we call barbecue. It's slow-cooked meat, seasoned with a blend of spices and sauces unique to Earth." Karvask sniffed the air, his pupils narrowing. "Meat? You dare offer us meat, human? Are you mocking us?" "Not at all," Raj replied smoothly. "Meat is a cornerstone of many Earth cuisines. We respect its power, its history, and its flavor. It's not just sustenance, it's an art." Karvask's eyes narrowed further, but he took the offered plate. He picked up a rib delicately between two claws and brought it to his mouth. The first bite was cautious, his jaws snapping through the tender meat with a precision that sent shivers down the human spines. Then, something unexpected happened. Karvask stopped. His eyes widened ever so slightly, and his nostrils flared as he inhaled deeply. He took another bite, this time more deliberate. By the third bite he was no longer cautious. He devoured the rib, his growl deepening into something almost pleased. "This," he said, licking the sauce from his claws, "is acceptable." Across the table, the other Drakari began to eat. At first they mirrored their leader's caution, but soon they too were engrossed in the meal. The humans watched with a mix of relief and pride as their guests indulged, their growls of satisfaction filling the air. Elise leaned toward Karvask, a small smile playing on her lips. "I take it you approve?" Karvask met her gaze, his eyes narrowing again, But this time there was a hint of something else: respect. Your kind is unexpected. Thank you, Elise replied. We take that as a compliment. As the meal continued, the humans introduced more dishes, each accompanied by a story of its origin. There were tales of ancient hunts, of survival in harsh climates, of celebrations that brought communities together. The Drakari listened, their skepticism gradually melting away. They began to ask questions their curiosity piqued. You speak of meat with reverence, one warrior said, his voice a low growl. Yet you are not predators. How do you understand its significance? Elise smiled, raising a glass of wine. We may not be apex predators in the traditional sense, but humans have always been hunters. We hunted to survive, to protect, and to thrive. Over time, we learned to respect the balance of life, to honor what we take and to give back in turn. Karvask watched her closely, his sharp teeth gleaming in the light. And now, do you still hunt? Not in the same way, Elise admitted. But the spirit of the hunt lives on, in our determination, our creativity, and our will to adapt. We've learned to make allies of even the most formidable forces. Just as we hope to do with you. Karvask tilted his head, his growl softening into something almost contemplative. You are bold, human. And boldness is a trait I respect. By the time dessert was served, a selection of Earth's most decadent confections, the tension had all but disappeared. The Drakari, once so cold and wary, now laughed and roared with their hosts, their predatory instincts tempered by the humans' disarming hospitality. As the banquet drew to a close, Karvask rose from his seat, towering over the room. He looked around at the humans, his yellow eyes gleaming. You are unlike any prey we have ever encountered. Elise stood to meet his gaze. That's because we're not prey. We're human. Karvask's growl rumbled through the chamber, but this time, it was unmistakably a laugh. Indeed. Perhaps humanity is not prey. Perhaps, you are something more. And with that, the Drakari left the ISS Unity, their perception of humanity forever changed. For the first time in their history, they had shared a meal with a species they couldn't conquer, couldn't dominate. Instead, they had been humbled, not by force, but by the simple, undeniable power of human hospitality. As the Drakari warships departed the ISS Unity, their imposing silhouettes fading into the endless expanse of space, the humans on board felt a collective sense of relief. But for Commander Elise Marlowe, the evening was far from over. Standing by the panoramic windows of the banquet hall, she sipped a glass of red wine, her gaze fixed on the departing vessels. The glow of the galactic core reflected faintly in her eyes. They didn't eat us, Lieutenant Raj Patel remarked, walking up to her side. He had a glass of whiskey in hand and a half-smile that betrayed his lingering tension. I'd say that's a win. Elise chuckled softly, though her posture remained guarded. It's more than a win, Raj. Tonight wasn't just about survival, it was about planting a seed. They came here expecting fear and submission. Instead, they left with something they didn't know they needed: respect. And a full stomach, Raj added, raising his glass. Elise's smile widened, but before she could respond, a subtle chime interrupted their moment. The holographic display on the far wall flickered to life, and the face of Admiral Keene appeared. The older man's grizzled features were as stern as ever, though his eyes carried a hint of approval. Well done, Commander, Keene said, his voice gruff. The Council is already abuzz with reports of your unconventional diplomacy. Thank you, Admiral, Elise replied, setting her glass down. Though I doubt the Drakari will be sending us a thank you card anytime soon. Keene allowed himself a rare smirk. Perhaps not, but you've done something no one else has managed in centuries. You've shown them that humanity isn't afraid to stand in their shadow. That's no small feat. Elise nodded, her expression thoughtful. They're not just predators, Admiral. Beneath the scales and the claws there are people. If we can reach them on that level, who knows what might be possible? Let's hope you're right, Keene replied. Because if you're wrong, the next time they come calling, it won't be for dinner. The hologram blinked out, leaving Elise and Raj in silence. The weight of the Admiral's words hung in the air, a reminder of the precarious path humanity was treading. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the Drakari fleet, Overlord Karvask sat in contemplative silence. The banquet had been a revelation, and not just because of the food. The humans had demonstrated a peculiar strength, one that defied the Drakari's understanding of dominance and power. They had faced the apex predators of the galaxy not with weapons or fear, but with a baffling blend of confidence and hospitality. Karvask's claws drummed lightly against the armrest of his throne. Around him, his advisors murmured amongst themselves, their voices low and uncertain. They are unusual, one of his generals ventured. No species has ever dared to invite us to their table. And none have served us a meal that could rival our own feasts, another added, his tone grudgingly impressed. Karvask silenced them with a wave of his massive claw. Do not mistake their hospitality for weakness, he growled. The humans are more dangerous than we anticipated. The room fell silent, his words sinking in. One of the younger warriors, brash and untested, spoke up. Dangerous? They are small, soft. Pray. How can they pose a threat to us? Karvask turned his piercing gaze on the warrior, his voice low and menacing. Prey does not invite its predator to a meal. Prey does not look a hunter in the eye and offer them a seat at their table. The humans, they are something else entirely. The younger warrior hesitated, cowed by the overlord's intensity. Karvask leaned back in his throne, his mind racing. The humans had shown him something he hadn't expected, a challenge not born of brute strength, but of an unyielding will. It was a quality the Drakari understood and respected, though they rarely encountered it in other species. They have potential, Karvask finally said, his voice thoughtful. But potential can be dangerous. We must decide whether to nurture it, or extinguish it. Back on the ISS Unity, the crew was debriefing in the war room. A holographic display projected the Drakari fleet's trajectory, showing their ships moving steadily away from human space. Elise stood at the head of the table, addressing her senior officers. The Drakari are unpredictable, she said, her tone serious. Tonight was a step forward, but it's far from a guarantee of peace. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next. Lieutenant Raj Patel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. What if they come back looking for a fight? We can't exactly invite them to another barbecue. Elise gave him a wry smile. No, but we can show them that we're not easy prey. The Drakari respect strength, but strength doesn't always mean force. Sometimes it's about standing your ground in a way they don't expect. Dr. Lena Morales, the ship's cultural analyst, chimed in. The banquet wasn't just about food. It was about challenging their perception of us. Predators see the world in terms of dominance and submission. By inviting them to our table, we showed them a different kind of power. Commander Elise nodded. Exactly. And that's the power we need to harness. The Drakari don't fear us, yet. But they do respect us, even if they won't admit it outright. That gives us an opening, a chance to shape the narrative. As the discussion continued, the crew laid out contingency plans, strategies for both diplomacy and defense. They knew the road ahead would be treacherous, but they also knew they were standing at the edge of something monumental, a chance to redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. Far away in the quiet of his quarters, Karvask replayed the evening in his mind. The humans' boldness, their peculiar traditions, their unshakable composure, it was all so alien, yet so intriguing. He picked up one of the human-crafted dining implements they had gifted him. A simple fork, its design elegant in its practicality. Turning it over in his claws, he found himself smiling, a rare and unsettling sight for a Drakari. The humans were a puzzle, one he intended to solve. For now, though, he would let them bask in their small victory. But as Karvask stared out at the stars, he made a silent vow. The next encounter would not be so one-sided. The humans had earned his respect, but respect alone would not guarantee their survival. Only time would tell whether they were truly as bold and as dangerous as they appeared. The Drakari fleet drifted through the inky void, their flagship at the vanguard. Inside the command chamber, Overlord Karvask watched the stars streak past, his mind preoccupied with the humans. The strange encounter aboard the ISS Unity had unsettled him in a way no battle ever had. For all their apparent frailty, the humans had stood firm, their demeanor unwavering even in the face of his kind's infamous presence. It was a stark contrast to the reactions of other species that had either groveled or fled at the sight of the Drakari. They perplex you, Overlord, General Tarkith observed, breaking the silence. The grizzled warrior stood at Karvask's side, his scales dulled by countless campaigns. He spoke cautiously, sensing his leader's introspection. Karvask let out a low growl, the sound reverberating through the chamber. They do. Humans defy every expectation. They neither cower nor attack. Instead they offer hospitality. His claws tapped rhythmically on the armrest of his throne, the metallic sound echoing in the quiet room. It's as though they see us not as predators but as equals. Tarkith hesitated, then ventured, perhaps that is their weakness, this naivety. They believe they can coexist with us, that our hunger for dominance can be tamed with shared meals and empty gestures. Karvask's eyes narrowed, his gaze cutting through the general.
Weakness. Or strength.
Tell me, Tarkith, what other species has had the audacity to treat us as anything but conquerors? They do not fear us, not in the way others do. And that, I suspect, makes them far more dangerous. Tarkith bowed his head, silenced by the Overlord's sharp retort. Karvask returned his attention to the stars, the silence between them growing heavy. Deep in his core, he felt the stirrings of something unfamiliar, a reluctant admiration. The humans had shown no teeth, no claws, yet they had disarmed him more thoroughly than any rival had in centuries. Back aboard the ISS Unity, Commander Elise Marlowe was busy overseeing preparations for a potential follow-up encounter. The Drakari might have left without incident, but she knew better than to believe the matter was resolved. In the war room, she reviewed the fleet's latest intelligence reports, a holographic map of Drakari-controlled territories projected before her. "Commander," Dr. Lena Morales interrupted, stepping into the room. The ship's cultural analyst held a data pad in her hands, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "I've been analyzing the Drakari's behavior during the banquet. There's something you need to see." Elise gestured for her to continue. Lena tapped a few commands on the pad, and a detailed report appeared on the hologram. The Drakari's reactions weren't just curiosity or disdain. There were subtle signs of uncertainty, confusion even. They're not used to being treated as equals, and it's thrown them off balance. Elise frowned, considering the implications. "So, we've disrupted their expectations. That's good, isn't it?" "It is," Lena agreed, "but it's also risky. Predators don't like being outmaneuvered. If they see us as a threat, they'll adapt. And if they adapt too quickly, we might not be ready." Elise nodded, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. "Then we'll have to stay one step ahead. We need to find a way to deepen this impression without provoking them into outright aggression." Lieutenant Raj Patel, leaning against the doorway with his characteristic smirk, chimed in, "Maybe we invite them to a sporting event next time. Let them see how humans really play." Elise shot him a wry look. "As much as I'd love to see a Drakari tackle a human rugby player, I think we'll need something a bit more nuanced." The room fell into a contemplative silence as the team worked through potential strategies. Every decision felt like walking a tightrope, one misstep away from disaster. Far away on the Drakari homeworld, the High Council convened in a sprawling chamber of obsidian and gold. Overlord Karvask stood before them, his imposing figure casting long shadows in the dim light. The council members, a mix of military leaders and elder statesmen, listened intently as he recounted his encounter with the humans. "They are unlike any species we have encountered," Karvask declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. "They possess no great strength, no advanced weaponry that rivals our own. Yet they stood before us with a confidence that borders on defiance. They offered us food and drink as though we were old allies." One of the counselors, a gaunt figure with sharp, calculating eyes, sneered. "Hospitality? Is this what swayed you, Overlord? Shall we now bow to those who set a table for us?" Karvask's claws slammed against the stone podium, silencing the room. "You misunderstand me, counselor. It is not their hospitality that concerns me, it is their audacity. The humans see us as equals. That belief alone could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy." The council murmured amongst themselves, their expressions ranging from skepticism to intrigue. Karvask continued, his tone measured but firm. "If we dismiss them as mere prey, we risk underestimating a potential rival. I propose we observe them further, learn their ways. Perhaps there is more to humanity than meets the eye." The council deliberated, the chamber filled with heated debate. In the end, Karvask's proposal was accepted, though not without dissent. A delegation would be sent to monitor humanity, their true purpose cloaked in diplomacy. Karvask knew it was a gamble, but one he believed was necessary. Humanity's boldness had awakened a curiosity he could not ignore. As the meeting adjourned, Karvask lingered, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape of the Drakari capital. The humans had forced him to question everything he thought he knew about power and dominance. And for the first time in his long reign, he felt the stirrings of uncertainty. But within that uncertainty lay possibility. The Drakari delegation arrived on Earth under the watchful eyes of humanity. For all their strength and imposing presence, the Drakari found themselves awestruck by the sheer audacity of the human species. Towering skyscrapers pierced the heavens, bustling metropolises sprawled across continents, and yet, amidst the chaos of urban life, there was a curious harmony. Humans had forged a delicate balance between their relentless drive for progress and the natural world they inhabited. Overlord Karvask stood at the edge of the landing platform in New Geneva, a human city chosen for its diplomatic neutrality. The air was alive with the hum of technology, but what truly unsettled him was the palpable energy of the humans themselves. Everywhere he looked, their expressions were filled with determination, curiosity, and an unyielding resilience. It was as though they thrived on challenges, bending even the harshest circumstances to their will. Overlord Karvask, came a calm voice. He turned to see Commander Elise Marlowe approaching, flanked by a contingent of Earth's representatives. She extended a hand, her posture relaxed yet unmistakably confident. "Welcome to Earth. I hope the journey treated you well." Karvask hesitated for a fraction of a second before clasping her hand. The gesture felt strangely symbolic, a predator shaking hands with prey that refused to be intimidated. "Your planet is unique," he said, his deep voice carefully measured. "Your people display a strength that belies their appearance." Elise smiled faintly. "We've had to be strong. Our history is marked by adversity, but we've learned to adapt. Perhaps that's why we intrigue you." Karvask's gaze narrowed. "Intrigue is one word for it. Humans defy expectations. You do not cower before power, yet you do not flaunt your own. It is unsettling." Elise gestured for the delegation to follow her. "Then let us continue to unsettle you, Overlord. We've prepared a tour that may provide insight into what drives us." The tour began with the United Nations Museum of History, a sprawling complex that chronicled humanity's tumultuous past. Karvask and his delegation walked through exhibits that detailed ancient wars, revolutions, scientific breakthroughs, and cultural renaissances. When they reached a section dedicated to Earth's conflicts, Karvask stopped before a display of artifacts from World War II. There, among faded photographs and rusted helmets, was a plaque that read, "In our darkest moments, we discovered the light within ourselves. It is not the absence of conflict that defines us, but our capacity to rise above it." Karvask turned to Elise, his expression unreadable. "You celebrate your capacity for destruction, yet you temper it with reflection. You are a paradox, Commander." Elise nodded. "We've made mistakes, Overlord. Catastrophic ones. But we've also learned from them. Humanity is defined by its contradictions. Perhaps that's why we're still here." The Drakari delegation exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier arrogance replaced by an unspoken realization. The humans were not naive, they were tempered by hardship, sharpened by survival. As the days passed, the Drakari were exposed to more facets of human life. They witnessed the unyielding dedication of scientists working to combat climate change, the artistic expressions of musicians and painters that spoke to the soul, and the camaraderie of families gathering for meals. Yet what struck them most was the unity that humanity displayed despite their vast differences. Karvask found himself standing on the observation deck of a space elevator, gazing down at Earth's surface far below. Elise stood beside him, her demeanor calm yet curious. "What do you see, Overlord?" He took a moment to answer. "I see a species that has every reason to destroy itself, yet chooses not to. You harness chaos and turn it into creation. It is humbling." Elise smirked. "Coming from you, that means a lot. But let me ask you this, what do the Drakari fear most about us?" Karvask turned to her, his crimson eyes gleaming. "We fear that you have no fear. You do not see us as predators. You see us as beings to be understood, perhaps even befriended. That is a power we do not know how to counter." Elise's expression softened. "Then maybe it's time to stop looking for counters and start looking for common ground." The Drakari delegation returned to their homeworld weeks later, their perspectives irrevocably altered. Karvask stood before the High Council once more, but this time, his words carried a new weight. "Humans are not prey," he began, his voice steady. "They are not predators either. They are something far more dangerous. They are adaptable. They thrive on challenges, turning them into opportunities. They wield their contradictions not as weaknesses but as strengths. To conquer them would not only be futile, it would be catastrophic." The council murmured in disbelief, but Karvask raised a hand to silence them. "We must change our approach. Humanity is not an enemy to be vanquished. They are allies we cannot afford to ignore. If we stand with them, we may secure a future greater than any we could achieve alone." The chamber fell silent as the council absorbed his words. For the first time in their history, the Drakari found themselves considering a path not of domination, but of cooperation. Years later, the galaxy would remember the moment the Drakari and humanity joined forces as the turning point in interstellar history. Together, they forged an alliance that transcended the boundaries of species and culture, proving that even the most unlikely of partnerships could reshape the stars. And as Karvask watched a human and Drakari child play together under the twin suns of a distant colony, he felt a rare sense of peace. Perhaps, just perhaps, the humans had been right all along.